All right guys, welcome back to the channel. So today's video, we're gonna be tuning on this 2014 GMC Sierra. This vehicle's been upgraded with a BTR 220 cam. This is a 6L80 truck, and I believe it's got a Magnuson supercharger on it. Haven't even popped the hood yet, so we're gonna figure that out. Also, it's been a while, obviously, for my videos. So we're gonna go ahead and pull this truck in, start tuning, and I'll talk about where I've been, what I've been up to, and where we're gonna go from here. All right guys, let's go ahead on and pop the hood on this thing. All right, so we got a 5.3 BTR 220 cam. We have the SLP supercharger, CTS-V 3-bar map sensor. It's a long tube headers, LT4 injectors, UPR catch can. So let's go ahead on and get this thing up in the air and take a look at it. All right guys, change of plans. Went to start the truck up to pull it back on the rack, and it's entirely too rich. The base file for this thing still has the 5.3 injector data in it. So we're just gonna go ahead on, load in the LT4 injector data and go in and build a base file. That way, because right now, I mean, it's physically producing smoke out the tailpipe, and obviously I'm in a shop with a bunch of guys working. I don't want to do that to them. So anyway, so it's been a couple weeks since I made a video. Realistically, it comes down to I kind of got overwhelmed, honestly. So traveled a bunch, been down to the Freedom Factory 2 times in the last couple weeks. Had a bunch of cars where I would start videos on them, and the cars were just not mechanically ready, not even close. So instead of me putting out a bunch of videos with a bunch of vehicles that weren't functioning correctly, I have those videos that I already started to take still stored. So I just figured it'd be better off just to start from scratch again. So this past weekend I was at the Freedom Factory tuning a Trackhawk that you guys may or may not know about. I had to go down there, just help them sort some issues, just had some kind of funky startup issues. I'd kind of come in towards the end to help them with tuning, and the truck was ripping, but it didn't cold start very well. There was just a lot of things that needed to be addressed. So it was 80 degrees and sunny in Florida. So I just went ahead on and flew down there and did it in person. I mean, I got tired of this 40-degree weather, which luckily I did because we ended up having a tornado come through. So anyways, did that. A couple weeks before, we had lay mullets, went down there, tuned ZZ Drew's airboat, or helped him with tuning on his airboat. Tuned something else. Oh, I tuned Ty's burnout car. So Ty Braun had made a 2012 model Coyote that was pulled from a parts place. Like, it was about to go, basically they were gonna pull the drivetrain out and scrap the rest of it. And so he ended up, got that car, and we turned it into a burnout car. So I just did kind of a simple E85 tune on it. So if you guys want a little bit of Coyote stuff, I can actually show you his burnout file and we can go over it in a video if you'd like. And then also, if you want me to go over the Trackhawk stuff, did 3 different tunes for it. Did a 93 tune, a flex fuel tune, and an E85 tune. So when I left there, when it had gone to 1006, it was on a 2.85 inch upper pulley. We went ahead on and went down to went up to a 3.1 inch upper and 93 octane for the winter. So we wanted to make sure the giveaway winner had a good vehicle that could go anywhere across the country, and then they're going to be supplied with the other tunes and the other pulleys so they can turn it back up and go 9s if they want. So anyways, reading out this file now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead on and make a torque model adjustment. We're gonna adjust the idle RPM. We're going to put in the injector data, and we're going to go ahead on and scale the map sensor. And that way I can back this thing up on the rack and it starts clean and runs clean, and then we'll get into the tuning from there. So I'm gonna finish letting this thing read out. Also, we are gonna be tuning for a torque converter. It's an FTI triple disc converter in here. So gonna be tuning for that as well. But anyways, I will be back with you once I'm finished with the read, and we'll get to working on the base file. All right, so let's go ahead on and build this base file. So right now in the background, I have a file from another 2014 Sierra that I tuned with LT4 injectors. But realistically, this data can just come from, if you just download a C7 Z06 or ZL1 Camaro, anything like that, you can definitely use the data from there. So what I'm gonna do is, since I have my comparison over here, then I'm gonna go to compare, view comparison log, and we're gonna scroll down to fuel. And then we can basically just come through here. All of this stuff will be the same for my application. So I'm just gonna go under general, and I'm gonna right click, and I'm gonna click copy over selected differences. And that handles that. So now all of the injector profile will be correct. Now, if you notice right here, you'll see where it still says 96.5, but once I swap this over and then come back, now it's there. So it does make the change. It's just sometimes you just got to make that move. All right, we're gonna go under idle, And again, this thing has a BTR 220 camshaft. So I'm just gonna rough this in for you guys. I've tuned this camshaft quite a bit, but let's go, and for right now, let's add 225 RPM across the board. And that's gonna be under your base set point. Park neutral, we're gonna need to also do that. So we're gonna add 225. Same with in gear, we're gonna add 225. Go under torque, idle speed control, reserve, we're just gonna change the axis and move the axis up 225. We're gonna do the same with external load. 225. All right, so the next thing we need to do is we need to make sure it has the correct data for the map sensor, and it does. Now we're gonna add some startup airflow. So base airflow, this is in grams per second. So let's just go ahead on and add, we'll just add 3 across the board for right now. Now startup airflow is something that it's better for just trial and error. So if you start it up and it flares kind of high for a while, you can pull some, like, because this axis right here is actually based off of engine runtime. So sometimes you'll only need to add, like, say 3 grams per second at this 0, and then after here you can taper it out. You just have to make your own adjustments for your application. We're gonna do the same with split CLO. We're gonna add 3 to this. And this is the same deal, but this is for split pulse. And so this is gonna be used on some startup, but it's not, this table isn't used all the time. So that should be good. They were running it in MAF only mode, which for right now is completely fine. Speed density hasn't been changed whatsoever. So I'm gonna grab a 220 camshaft VE table and we'll make that work. But for right now, we're just gonna keep moving along. Fuel. We're gonna go ahead on and disable long-term fuel trims. So on this one, you're just gonna change the coolant temp to 284, and then that's not gonna stop it completely like it does in the Gen 4 ECU. So you're actually gonna have to go under min map versus baro. And I don't think this thing will go over 200 kPa, so we're just gonna make this 200 kPa. So basically what that's saying is long-term fuel trims are not gonna be enabled till over 200 kPa, which is completely cool with me. We're gonna leave all that alone. This right here, need to make sure it's disabled, and it is. I always just go ahead on and put a 1 there just in case. We're gonna move the deceleration fuel cutoff up as well. So I'm gonna put this tune in the background, and then we're gonna just go to the difference, and then we're gonna go to enable RPM, and we're gonna add 225. Disable RPM, we're gonna add 225. So that should be good for that. And basically what that does is it just moves up when deceleration fuel cutoff shuts off to where the engine's back good again. Obviously our idle has been bumped up 225 RPM, so we want to move that threshold, because obviously factory threshold, it looks like they're going to want roughly a 500 RPM gap from when deceleration fuel cutoff shuts off versus desired idle RPM. So that's done. I'll adjust the rev limiter and stuff later. Again, we're just trying to get this thing backed up on the rack at the moment. This truck is actually a flex fuel truck. Okay, well that's cool. So what we're gonna do is we'll go ahead on and set stoic point back then. So this thing will know the corrected stoic point for flex fuel. Now obviously this truck does not have enough fuel system to run E85, but at least we can use the sensor, and that way we know our stoic point's always gonna be correct for whatever pump gas he gets. It may be 9%, it may be 11% ethanol, but that way the truck, we have it there, we might as well use it. All this other stuff should be okay for now. We're gonna go in the torque model. And as I've showed you guys before, when it comes to these camshafts, they are definitely gonna need an adjustment for torque. So what we're gonna do for now, we'll do 20% reduction in our torque model for now, and then I will dial it in using 0 pedal torque later. So what we're gonna do is, in order to reduce a negative number, you have to multiply it by a positive number. So we're gonna do 1.2, and that's gonna lower it down 20%. We're gonna scroll down. Actually, let's go ahead and do it for the 900 column too. And then we're gonna scroll down, and then we're gonna just type in a 0.8. And we're going to interpolate vertically. And then we can just drag this over and interpolate horizontally to make it smooth, and then extrapolate coefficients. We're gonna do the same thing with map. So right here, we're gonna type in 1.2. We're gonna scroll down. And again, guys, I'm just roughing this in. This should get idle spark to where I'm happy with it. Again, on the 5.3 trucks, I like for them to idle spark between 0 and 5 degrees because that's what factory does. If I feel like it doesn't make enough manifold vacuum for this camshaft, then I will go ahead on and get the timing to go more positive. And that takes a little bit more intricate torque model adjustments. But for now, this is what we're gonna stick with because this will start the truck up and the truck should idle just fine. So we're gonna do the same thing under E85 air mass. We're gonna interpolate vertically and then interpolate horizontally between 900 and 1600. Extrapolate, same thing for E85 map. Now again, we're doing this even though the truck is flex fuel, but it's not gonna run on E85 because it has insufficient fueling. We're still gonna make this adjustment now just to basically be uniform. All right, so torque model has been adjusted, so now the truck will idle just fine. Everything else we're gonna leave alone. Under engine diag, we're gonna have to, because it is cammed. For right now, this PO1, this right here, I'm gonna make this 493. And then I'll make this -40. For the 0068, we're gonna make this 8000 for now. Now again, I don't leave these like this. I actually will dial in these, but for right now, we're also just trying to get this thing running. So you can actually, if you want to dial this in, you can go back to 800 RPM and you can adjust your max airflow. But right now we don't know what max airflow this engine's gonna make. So I don't want it throwing the truck in a limp mode or anything like that while we're doing pulls. But I can watch our airflow during the run and then actually correctly calibrate these tables. Misfire, for right now, we're just gonna max these out. Now what I will do is once I am done, I will dial these in to where they will still function as good as possible with a camshaft. Some guys will just max these out and just leave them alone. Now I just do from 3000 down. But realistically, this is a timer and it's basically how long the ECU takes before it triggers a misfire counter. So you can actually increase it by, you know, basically percentages. So I've had some of these camshafts where if I just increase the factory numbers by like 2, it gets us in that spot to where it won't throw a misfire counter at idle unless you know, I can pull off a plug wire and then it'll show it. But you really have to dial it in per camshaft and per everything else. So for right now, we're just gonna max this out. That way the check engine light's not flashing at me. That should be good. Okay. So this will get this taken care of. So we're gonna go ahead on and save this as, and I'm gonna load it in. And I'm just gonna write the engine for right now. Now I will have to go in and dial in the the rail pressure commanded. This truck still has an L83 fuel pump, but it does have the larger fuel lobe. So I'll show you guys how to do that. I've showed you in other videos, but I'll show you how to do that. But again, right now we're just trying to start this thing up. So we still have a lot of dialing in to do as far as rail pressure goes, as far as V table goes, as far as basically all that stuff goes. But I just want to get this thing backed up so I can put a wideband in it. All right, let's see how it starts. Started right up. Scanner's not real happy. But it's not smoking out the tailpipe anymore, so that's good. Yeah, scanner's pissed off. Anyways, I'm gonna get this thing backed up. We'll put a wideband in it and get it back on the dyno. All right, so let's go into the truck and check it out. Front tires are good. Headers are clear, it looks like. Maybe touching just slightly, like right there. So I have to watch knock sensors there, make sure they're not setting off something false. Headers are clear over on this side. You guys can kind of see. I mean, you can just barely see light between there and the frame rail, but it's already got a wideband bunk, so we'll put mine in there. This exhaust is not ideal. Not sure what happened. Maybe it lost the drive shaft at one time. The muffler's beat up. That pipe's beat up, so may not have max power today. But everything looks good though. definitely gonna recommend he replaces that exhaust pipe, but otherwise, I'm gonna get a wideband in here and let's get down on the dyno. All right guys, so got the truck up on the dyno now. Working on the tune file now that we're actually up on the dyno. So I just did the V table, so if you guys wanna see what it looks like, this is gonna be our beginning V table. Looks a little something like that. That should get us in the ballpark. That is from a Whipple truck that I did not too long ago. So now we need to go ahead on and get the variable cam timing set up. So we're gonna go on to BTR's website, go on and search up the 220 camshaft, and we will go into the download section, and they give us a PDF of the estimated perfect cam timing settings for this camshaft. Now, I am the one that chose the 220 camshaft for this vehicle. I know some guys will say, well, that's not a positive displacement camshaft. Well, from my experience, I've had just as good of luck using a good solid NA camshaft versus just using a PDS camshaft. This customer obviously wanted a little bit of sound too. So this cam is gonna get the job done. I've used stage 3, BTR, L83 cams, blower applications. Like, we've used pretty much all of it. This camshaft's gonna work solid. So anyways, we're gonna go ahead on, and now that we have our cam timing settings, this is an L83. So we're gonna use this cam timing settings right here. We're gonna go ahead on and get that put into the tune. So I'm gonna go ahead on and get the axis set up. All right, so you're gonna go into airflow, variable camshaft. Now I've already got my axis set up. So you guys will notice that the axis right here is gonna be a little bit different than what you see from the factory. You can alter this axis, you just click RPM right here. You can change this to whatever you want. So now that I have this set up the way they want, I know at 5600 they're gonna want 1 degree. And again, this is an L83, so we're gonna do 2, 2.5, and 3, then 4. So 2, 2.5, 3, and then 4. So make sure we got 4 degrees at 6400. 4 degrees at 6400, yep. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna copy this. Now this table right here was under watt desired angle. So we're just gonna go into our low, and I'm gonna paste that up top. And then I'm going to paste it at the bottom. And then I'm gonna highlight all. And then we're gonna interpolate between vertical bounds. And that has our table set up. So then what we're gonna do is we're gonna copy this. Now, if this vehicle didn't have a 4 degree limiter, technically this camshaft could actually get away with a more aggressive limiter, and you could have some retard, like cam timing retard, at cruising areas to help with pumping loss. But with 4 degrees of lockout, it's just not worth it. So anyway, so that's got our variable cam timing set up, squared away. I've also gone ahead on and done our speed density table. So I've also done spark. So if you want to see kind of where I'm at, 93 octane on spark, which is a base setup, this is where we're at. I did rescale the axis here to 1.76 grams. So, and I've got it tapered down for pump gas. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna load this in, and we're gonna go ahead on and start data logging. This truck does have excessive smoke right now. I'm gonna assume, oh, actually we need to modify the fuel lobe as well. We'll do that while we're here. So all you're gonna do is you're just gonna go back to description. You're gonna notice it says a 32% lobe. So we're gonna go under fuel system, and you're gonna notice where this pump type is leading edge. So we're gonna go under fuel pump, then under leading edge angle, and we're gonna take this axis and we're gonna multiply it times 32%, so 1.32, and then that'll correct us for our fuel lobe. So that's got everything else squared away. I've already disabled the codes and stuff for a lot of the modifications, so once we load this in, we should be ready to rip. But I did notice this truck has excessive smoke right now. It could just be burning off from where I did not have the corrected injector data in it when it was started. Otherwise, hopefully this thing runs pretty good right off the rip. So we're gonna load this in, and then we'll start data logging. All right guys, tune file is loaded in. So we're gonna go ahead on and start the data logger up. Now the mass airflow sensor table, that the calibration table, is gonna be whatever this truck was running on for however long it's been supercharged. It's from the previous tune. The V table that's in this, again, is from a Whipple truck that I did not too long ago that had a similar camshaft. So we're just gonna look at it and see where we're at. All right, narrow bands are starting to warm up. Wideband is live. So far that looks okay. Let's look at zero pedal torque. Zero pedal torque is still high. So we need to modify the torque model some more. We went 20% before. but we need to modify it some more. We're going to try to get this down as close to 0 as humanly possible. So what we're going to do is I'm going to, just looking at this number, I'm going to take off another 15% off the torque model. So I'm going to stop this data logger. And I'm going to let the truck run for a minute because I got a jump box on the truck right now. It was starting to get a little bit weak on the battery side of things. Anyways, you're going to go under virtual torque. And just like what we did before, we're going to do 15%, so it'll be 1.15 in the negative numbers, multiply, and times 0.85 on the positive numbers. Interpolate, interpolate, extrapolate. We're done on that one. This truck is really smoky. It is really smoky. Could also be though, this thing has new exhaust up front. So it could be that new exhaust, they put those oils on it. And this thing hasn't been ran just yet. So you guys can see, I mean, fuel trims are off. I mean, it's nothing terrible. Go ahead on and get the axis set up for my math scaling. If you've never modified your charts or your graph, you just right click, go graph layout, and then right now I'm changing the frequency on the math to match what's in my tune file. So, and it looks like off, so I'm gonna knock some of that off the math as well. V is gonna be a little bit off. We're clipped right now, but it's gonna be a little bit off. So we're gonna make that adjustment. Okay, so we'll just do like 12%, 3,000 down, times 0.88, and I'm not gonna change anything else. We're just gonna, we'll send it in just like this. So we'll call this file save as, and we're gonna send it in. Tune file's loaded in. I probably honestly shouldn't have made a torque adjustment just then. Probably should have just done math first, but we'll see how it does. Yeah, 0 pedal torque's off. 0 pedal torque's probably off another 5%. So we probably should have adjusted math first, made the adjustment, but we were probably about 10 off. All right, so I made that little bit of adjustment to the torque model. I just put 5% back on 0 pedal torque. Looks like we're right around where we want to be. Like I told you guys, I like them to idle a little bit between 0 and 5 degrees. So that works. We've got a little bit of an oscillating idle here, and that's realistically gonna be from, if I had to guess, it's probably gonna be under the predicted airflow for idle. So reason being, so you have idle speed control, and immediate is gonna be timing based, predicted is gonna be airflow based. With this thing having a supercharger on here, the slightest movement in throttle blade is gonna have more airflow than what it would have had from the factory. So what we can do is we can actually kind of deaden this down some, and then we can actually, if we want, we can actually have spark do more of the work instead of the throttle blade angle. So right now I'm just kind of just data logging it, watching it. 0 pedal torque's doing what it needs to do. Let's just go ahead on and drive it. I'll switch off traction control. Try to get an idea of how close the math curve was with the previous tune. So it looks like we were off quite a bit. So it looks like we're going to be rich pretty much across the board. So we'll make that adjustment. All right, let's lock this thing in. Let's just do a little partial rip. Looks like we went a little bit lean. It started to spin tires a little bit. So, all right, we got some adjustments to make. So I'm gonna adjust the math curve based on the percentages that you see. Looks like up top, we were making right around 7-ish pounds. Injector pulse width actually looked pretty good without having to adjust high pressure pump. And we were a little bit lean. So we'll make adjustments there and go again. All right, got that tune file loaded in. And we're gonna start driving this thing some more. So you guys will notice fuel trim's pretty close at the moment. Zero pedal engine torque is pretty close. Idle timing's right about where I want it to be. Baro is working correctly. Everything seems to be doing pretty good so far. Still getting some oscillation out of the idle. It may be torque model, it may be throttle follower. There may be a couple different things it can be. It also can be AC. So a lot of guys don't look at this, but you have AC compressor at 0% load. It could be in here. So there's a number of places where this could be. So I'm watching timing. Yeah, I think it's actually worse with the adjustments that I did to predicted. So I will probably go the opposite direction. But anyways, let's go ahead on and drive this thing. All right, let's try to do a little bit longer of a rip. Went very rich. You guys can see here, we had spots of 0.76 lambda. We're targeting 0.85. So we will make that adjustment, and we're just gonna keep working through this tune-up. Manifold air has got to be wrong. There's no way it's getting down to 44 degrees. They got some scaling or something wrong on this IAT sensor. So I'm gonna have to figure out which IAT sensor it has in the blower as well. All right, so I made a change to the MAF to lean it out some up top, but I noticed I just got a stock 2014 file in the background. I noticed they changed the IAT, and they changed it quite a bit. So I'm just gonna put this back to stock. I'm assuming they knew what they were doing, but I'm just gonna put it back to stock right now and see if it becomes more realistic. If it does not, then we're gonna have to do some more digging with the IAT sensor. Because this IAT sensor, I believe, has been broken out from the mass airflow sensor and moved into the blower. So I'm assuming it's not a factory IAT sensor, but still, you guys saw we went from 60 something degrees down to 45. That can't be right. So anyways, we're gonna load this tune file in and we'll try again. All right, so that change has been made. Gonna go ahead on and try again. Right now, manifold air temp though is for sure not accurate. Yeah, you guys can see I've got 5 degrees, so it's just off. Well, that definitely looked cleaner. So we're right around 7-ish pounds or so. Looks like we see a peak of 14.5 degrees up top, but I've got to get that IAT sensor figured out. So, all right, time to do some digging. All right, guys, it's a couple hours later. Pulled the intake temp sensor out. This thing is actually a stock temp sensor for basically every Ford between 1995 and 2014. So I had to do some digging. It took me a couple hours going through service manuals and stuff to find an actual resistance chart, because the factory GM data actually uses resistance versus temperature and Ford uses voltage versus temperature. So I finally found a transfer function that I could use. I input it in the transfer function, and now as of right this second, this sensor is showing 82 degrees sitting out where it's at. Let's go inside and I'll kind of show you the resistance table that I come up with, and then we'll stick it in the truck and hopefully it's right. Because otherwise, the only thing I know to do is just to change this connector out and put an LSA sensor in here and call it done. I'm not sure why they didn't do that in the first place, but that's just the nature of tuning. Is like the calibration that was in this truck, I'm assuming was from Magnuson or SLP or whoever did the tuning for this supercharger, and it's been off the entire time. All right, guys, so it's actually a couple days later. I had some small mechanical things to address on this thing, and the truck started to throw a PO340 and a PO341, which are cam sensor issues. So apparently the plug was just a little bit loose. Also, the oil smoke was actually coming from the catch can hose, needed a PCV valve. So just a couple little things need to be addressed. So anyway, so we're back up on the dyno now, and I'm actually about to do the first pull on this truck. So I have not done a pull whatsoever, other than I've done a little baby ones on the street, and then obviously what we did the other night, I had been watt then, but we're gonna go ahead on and do a dyno pull, and let's do a rip. It's probably too short of a pull, but so far, I mean, everything looked okay. All right, well, let's get out and see what kind of power it made. All right, so that pull was 450.3 horsepower, 371.4 foot-pounds of torque. Keep in mind, this is with weather correction factor, and I also think the truck spun. So next pull should make a little bit more power. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead on, so I'm gonna kick on simulated inertia, and I'm gonna look at mile per hour in the scanner as well, and just make sure that we're not getting anything crazy. So again, this did spin, so this is probably accurate, but I don't believe this is to be accurate whatsoever. So this next pull should be a whole lot longer, but let's jump back inside the truck and look at the data. All right, also I want you guys to remember, not sure if you remember earlier in the video or not, but that exhaust that's on this thing is 3-inch and it is crushed like it's been hit with a drive shaft before. So I didn't expect on this thing making a ton of power. So this is a Mustang dyno, so we're 10% low. So that should be right around 495 or so on a Dynojet, which I feel like is low for sure for this combination. But that exhaust is gonna, I bet that exhaust is holding us back. I'm gonna say 40 to 50 wheel pretty easily. So anyways, looking through the data here, everything looks pretty good. Obviously that pull was a little bit short, so I can't 100% trust my wideband, but we are actually in the ballpark. Split pulse, like I've showed you guys before, I like to usually stay right around 180 degrees. So we need to pull injection timing back a little bit. And so I'm just gonna move it back, you know, depending on the RPM, whatever the difference is from this to 180. So, you know, 10 to as much as 20 degrees, actually a little bit over 20 degrees. So gonna tweak that some. I'm probably gonna lean this truck out a little bit as far as commanded goes. We'll probably drop it back to like 0.84, 0.85. But everything else looks okay. So the truck may pick up a little bit more power on the next run, but it was in the ballpark for sure of where the truck was going to be happy. I already knew that. So anyways, I'm going to make these adjustments and then we'll do another rip. All right, tune adjustments have been made. I'm actually going to try to do a pull with vehicle simulation on in second gear and see how the length of the dyno pull is. I am not a huge fan of, like, so 6,700 RPM in third gear locked equated out to like 112 miles an hour or so, which I mean, it's a lot of drive shaft speed. Now it felt smooth. Obviously this truck's had drive shaft issues before after looking at the exhaust. So we'll try second, and if it still seems too short, then we'll go ahead on in a third. All right, so let's do a pull. Yeah, it just spun immediately. All right, we'll get it stopped. I'll restart the dyno and then we'll do a third gear pull. All right, dyno's reset. Let's go third. See how it does. Yeah, manifold temp was getting up there. Showing a little bit of knock, right around 6,600. All the knock sensor stuff is all factory right now, and I've seen that before. So it could be a little bit of that. But anyways, we'll check the video and look through this data a little bit more, but let's get out and see how much power it made. All right, so it looks like we made 457.6 horsepower, 454.8 foot-pounds of torque. This looks good now. We definitely weren't spinning. So everything looks good right here. So I can show you guys the trace. All right, so that's what it looks like. So pretty good, solid, flat torque curve. This thing really wants E85, and it really wants more heat exchanger. So let's jump back in the truck and I'll walk you guys through the data. All right, so we'll look through this data real quick. Like I said, this knock up here, I'm not terribly concerned about. It is up in an area where I'll have the truck shift before here. I'll probably have the truck shift at like 6,500 or so. Could be valve geometry, could be that excessive intake temp, because you guys can see we started the pull off at 106 degrees, and through that pull we're already up to 143, 145. Pump gas doesn't like that too much. So, but anyways, this pull looks like we're seeing a peak of about 13 degrees or so, which is a little bit soft for this truck. But again, with intake temp being where it is and with the exhaust being the way it is, that's just where the truck needs to be, honestly. So if the exhaust gets opened up and we can do a little bit of something better with the heat exchanger, this thing could take probably another couple degrees. Exhaust alone is going to pick this truck up quite a bit, but it just, I mean, it's just going to be a fun little street truck. I mean, 460 wheel horsepower on here is a little over 500 wheel on a Dynojet. I mean, we're a little bit less than 7 pounds. Let's see, we'll see. So we saw a peak of 153 kPa, which is 7.6 pounds. Then up top, yeah, 6.6 pounds. So overall, it's not bad. I mean, so I'll tell you guys, this camshaft in this truck, if it was naturally aspirated with good exhaust, would have probably made 370 or so on here. So looking at basically 100 more horsepower with the supercharger, which again, with this, I'm telling you, I promise, you guys may or may not believe me, but this exhaust is terrible for this truck. So like I was half tempted just to go and slide it off and see how much more it picks up, but I'm not gonna do that. So anyways, we'll call this one done. I'm going to take it out on the street, double check trans shift points, but truck starts good, everything does what it's supposed to do. So right about where we expected. I'm sure we'll see this truck again. It'll probably end up, if I had to guess, it'll probably end up on E85 and at least a better exhaust. I mean, so if this thing was on E85 and a better exhaust, I would estimate it making 560 or so on this dyno. So I honestly think it'd pick up 100 horsepower. So anyways, let's get this truck unstrapped and go out on the street. All right guys, final test drive in the Sierra. Going to cruise this thing up the street and make sure everything feels good. I adjusted some oncoming and offgoing preset pressures on the trans. Just try to make sure everything like shifts smooth. I want the trans to shift quick, but not too firm. So light throttle right now, it actually feels great. Wide open throttle will probably be a little bit different of a story. So we're just gonna do a little partial pull, or we'll probably get in like a 2-3 shift. This truck likes to blow tires off at anything. I mean, realistically, like if you guys watching the log, you'll actually see this thing pulling timing for traction control, even from like probably 40 miles an hour or so. And it doesn't put all the timing in it until like 65 or 70. So the truck likes to spin tires pretty good. If you guys are watching the shifts in the log, you'll see they're quick and they're crisp, but truck's still pulling timing just like it should. So like when you're actually feeling it, you can tell the truck's shifting, but you don't feel that nose over, and it's just punchy when it actually does complete the shift. Looking at fuel trims up top, fuel trims look good. I always like them, like I said, you know, plus or minus, realistically, plus or minus 10% is fine. I like to be plus or minus like 3. Sometimes I'll spend entirely too much time to make that happen. I don't recommend you guys doing the same. It is just me being me. You guys will see my VE table, everything's lining up. Like all the airflow calculations are lining right up. Peak torque lines up with actual what the engine's producing. Like I try to be as perfect on these as humanly possible. The more truths you tell to this ECU, the better off you are. All right, we're gonna make this turn. I'm gonna go ahead on and lay into it a little bit. Get up to like, I don't know, like 30. That was good. Spun, more of a controlled spin though. Completed the 2-3 shift like it was supposed to. Wasn't neck snapping, it was just fast. Pulled timing out like it was supposed to. So, truck seems good. I'd definitely be happy driving this thing every day. Yeah, truck returns to idle. I mean, everything's perfect. So we're gonna call this thing done. I'm gonna go ahead on and spin this truck around, head back to the shop, and go home and spend time with my son. So hope you guys appreciated the video. Hope you learned something. If you have any questions, feel free to drop me a comment down below. I am gonna start getting the videos back up and going again like I had been. Honestly, I just got overwhelmed. Trying to put out videos every single night and staying up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, working on editing and uploading can be a lot. And then also with the traveling, heading down to Florida multiple times, it's just, I just had to take a break. So anyways, I'll be back going through videos again. We are gonna go back down to Florida next week, but I'll probably actually film a video there. So we're gonna take a little turbo 5.3 Jeep down to the Christmas tree drags and we'll hang out with everybody down there. I may even talk to Mr. Sam. I've been helping him with he's got a little turbo 5.3 Fairmont, and may go ahead and do a video on it. That way he can actually reference it back. I've been trying to teach Mr. Sam how to tune as well. So anyways, guys, I will talk to you guys probably in a couple days. I'm gonna do some members only videos this weekend. So if you're a member, you'll see some more videos from me. If not, I'm gonna try to get a couple videos out for y'all next week before I go to Florida. So anyways, I will talk to you guys later.